Check, mic check. Testing 1 2 1 2. Check testing. Check testing 1 2 1 2.
Too much bass. You might want to come a little bit.
1 2, kind of low. 1 2. Check testing. 1 2. Check testing. 1 2 1 2. Testing. 1 2 testing. 1 2 check. Testing 1 2 1 2 check. Mic check. 1 2 1 2 1 2 check check 1 2 1 2 check testing. What sounds better? 1 2 check. Testing 1 2 check 1 2 1 2 1 2.
He's pretty far along. No idea. Great. Just saw a picture. Wait, see him. That's your picture. Right. Better watch out, he likes kissing and shit. I don't know, I've heard about the senior centers. Yeah, right? Yeah. Está comiendo bien. Está comiendo. Sí, los chicos
Oh, you're good. In front of the door. I'm sliding over the show.
came a long way from like Turk and Laguna from last time I saw you.
Last up, checked into a little check. I think he's especially worth it. Come on down quickly. And that's right. Nothing's front. Yeah. Well, the thing is, they do it. That's the one thing. They do or they don't. I wouldn't know now. Yeah. Yeah. I was in South. I'm running the people in East Bay, people in California. Why do I send you 20 seconds later they'll see it? 20 seconds to give them a thumbs up.
So we're gonna get started in a few minutes. Just so you know, the mayor will give some brief remarks. The new chief will give some brief remarks. Susie Loftus, president of the police commission, will give a few brief remarks. We'll then take Q&A. I will be calling on the reporters rather than having everyone scream out. I will call reporters by name, and we will take questions that way. Okay, thank you.
Do you have a time frame right now?
Commander Mannix? Guy, police commissioners now, please.
Police commissioners.
Did you go?
You see how it really works.
Thank you. Commissioner Loftus? Supervisor?
I do not have anybody from the until you told me.
Thank you very much.
Nobody told me I was going to be in my box. No, I don't know how to box. I gotta go.
Here.
I'm trying.
May I have community, excuse me.
I don't know.
Yeah, what did you?
They can go by.
Right in here, please. Thank you. Thank you. Reverend Townsend, right in here. Thank you.
He is.
If we can move, if you can move back just a little, please. If we can get some community in here. Hi, how are you, sir? Happy holidays.
Can't see.
Excuse me. Can you see the presentation?
Am I rolling?
Stand here with the command staff, like Mrs. Scott.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and I thank you all from the Interfaith Council and community anti-violence groups and public safety groups and our religious leaders, to our department heads, to the police commission, to all those that have worked together to make sure our city is safe and successful. First and foremost, let me personally thank Chief Tony Chaplin. Tony stepped up and led our department with grace and integrity during an incredibly trying time for our city and our department. He's worked tirelessly to move our San Francisco Police Department forward and on a path to reform, and the San Francisco Police Department is better today than it was when he took the role as acting chief. And for that, we are all indebted to Tony, and I want to thank him on behalf of myself and for the city of San Francisco. Tony, thank you very much. As you all know, this process was very comprehensive. Great deal of effort went into searching for candidates with the skill set, the characteristics that were desired and talked about in so many community meetings, and the right experience to lead the San Francisco Police Department. The search did include internal and external, national as well as local candidates. It is my pleasure to announce that the thorough process paid off. We found a candidate that both the commission and I felt embodied what our city and our police department needs in the next police chief, and that is in William Bill Scott, the Deputy Chief of the Los Angeles Police Department. Deputy Chief Scott is a 27-year veteran with the LAPD, a department that during the last 10 years has undergone its own transformation, implementing reforms within the Department of Justice. And with the experience of managing a department taking on similar changes, coupled with the progress made under Tony's leadership, I believe we have exponentially increased our chances and efforts to build the 21st century police department more quickly and effectively. Deputy Chief Scott has seen firsthand what it takes to not just implement a series of reforms, but the efforts it'll take to transform a department, continue to build community trust, and create a more transparent and accountable police department. It starts at the top, and I'm confident Deputy Chief Scott is up to the task. Not only has Scott helped usher in reforms, he's also has the operational and administrative experience needed to keep our streets and our neighborhoods safe each day. He's responsible for daily management and operations of the LA's South Bureau. He's responsible for managing 4 geographical areas, 3 specialized entities, and has led more than 1,700 employees that serve nearly 740,000 residents in a 57 square mile radius. I'm confident that we've gained something unique in Deputy Chief Scott, and I look forward to his leadership as we move forward as a city. I want to thank the Police Commission for conducting an exhaustive and comprehensive search. Each and every one of your dedication to this process has not gone unnoticed, and all your hard work has brought us to this moment. I also want to thank all of the anti-violence and public safety groups, as well as our interfaith leaders, because you've been at the table in every instance, helping us understand the needs of our city, but also listening to people who were hurt, impacted, and wanted our officers and our police department, our city, ultimately to do better, our entire city. I've said it before that the release of the Department of Justice report was not the end of this journey, it is the beginning. It has provided us with a roadmap forward, which we promise to honor, and we now have a leader in place with the experience under his belt, the proven ability, and the leadership skills to work with all the different entities involved to succeed. This is a great day for the city of San Francisco, and I want to welcome Bill and his family to San Francisco, and it's my pleasure now to introduce San Francisco's next chief of the San Francisco Police Department, William Bill Scott.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Lee for taking the steps to select me for this position. I know this process was not an easy one. There were a lot of folks that were qualified for this position, and I'm grateful and thankful that I've been selected to lead this great city and this great department. I have a rule that I usually, when I speak in public, I try to eliminate the word I from the speech, because really the work that needs to be done is more about we. But I know you guys want to know who I am, so I'm going to start this with I, so you know a little bit more about me and what you're getting in terms of who I am as a person. I brought my family with me today, and with the exception of my daughter who couldn't get off work, my family is here with me. So I want to introduce them, my wife Frazier, and my son Brandon, and my son Tyler, because they are really the force that drives my life. And I couldn't do it without them. So they're here with me, and they've been with me throughout this journey. A little bit about me. I am from Alabama originally. Went to college at the University of Alabama with a degree in accounting. An interesting story, and I'll be real brief because I don't want to use up all the time here, but when my wife and I got married, we talked about the places that we wanted to live, and number one on my list was the city of San Francisco. So, you know, it didn't work out that way immediately because LA came first, but ironically, yesterday was our anniversary, what, 29 years, I think, 29 years. And so on our anniversary, we end up in San Francisco to accept this job. So I just thought that was kind of karma in the making, and it's really a great thing. So with that, I will talk about the we. Any successful police department has to be a partnership between the community, the officers that work the police department, definitely the chief of police is a leader, and will drive that vision of the mayor and the city leaders, but it's really about we, and that's what I want to focus the rest of my remarks about. To the community of the city of San Francisco and the various diverse communities that make up this great city, what you will find in me, I hope, is the same person that I've been all my life, a person that will listen to you, will hear you, will take action as appropriate, a person that will be fair and will be consistent. And that's the same thing that I like to share with the men and women of the San Francisco Police Department, because that is where the work gets done. One of the hardest parts about this process was that I couldn't reach out to the men and women of the San Francisco Police Department, the men and women that I'll be working with, but starting today, that will change, of course, and I am so excited to meet and to get to know the men and women of this police department, because one thing that I've seen in my travels around this world, and I've met a lot of police departments and been to a lot of places all around the world, there's one thing that we all have in common. Those of us that are really dedicated to this profession and really committed, there's one thing that we have in common. We care about the communities we serve, and we care about the service, and from what I can see, that rings true here. Every department has issues, every department has things to work on, and this is no exception, but the men and women of this department from everything that I've said, read, heard, seen, including arriving at the airport and how friendly the officers were. They didn't know who I was. I mean, I was just another person, but the officers that I've met since I've been here during this process have been very friendly, very engaging. My wife and I went to lunch a couple of weeks ago. We were up here and sat next to two officers, and they didn't know who I was, but just engaged in conversation. That's the type of service that rings true for a cop that really cares about what they do. Because it's very easy to be insular. It's very easy to not engage with the community. And I think with this department, from what I've seen personally, that is not the case here, and I'm looking forward to meeting and working with the fine officers of the San Francisco PD. Lastly, let me just say thank you to the Police Commission, President Loftus, the recruiting firm that actually talked me through this process. I wasn't looking for a job. And I was very happy in LAPD. I love that city, I love that department, very happy in LAPD. But it's funny how God works. Wasn't looking for a job, and the opportunity came my way, and I've always been the type of person to just do what you can do to put yourself in a position when the opportunity comes to take advantage of it. And that's kind of how this played out. Being the fact that this is a place that I always wanted to live, and the opportunity came up, it just felt right to me. And when I started to research the city and the infrastructure and the things that the mayor is doing and the mayor's vision, it felt even more right. So I am so excited to be a part of this. The police department is just a piece of the total big picture, but it's an important piece, and I don't take that lightly. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of reforms that are on the agenda. Chief Chaplain has reached out to me and been gracious in doing so, and I am looking forward to working with him to get to where we need to get to. So thank you again for allowing me to be your chief of police.
I want to take this opportunity to, again, publicly thank the commission. And I had a chance through this process to work very closely with the president of the commission, Susie Loftus, and a lot of hours, but more than that, a lot of quality thought had been conducted throughout this entire, almost a year-long process. And President Loftus, I want to say thank you for your dedication to not only public safety, but to the quality of life here in the city. And I want you to say a few words about how this has impacted your longevity.
No comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Chief. So I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for making this selection. I want to thank Interim Chief Tony Chaplin, the entire command staff, the men and women of the San Francisco Police Department. Uncertainty around who your leader is difficult. Chief Chaplin was extraordinary, laid the groundwork, and here we are. So many community members across San Francisco, from Chinatown to the Bayview to the Western Addition, came out to our community meetings and told us what to look for. San Franciscans care deeply about this city, and they care very deeply about who their police chief is. And we had an incredible crew of candidates, and I will say this about Chief Bill Scott. San Franciscans want to know that you appreciate this city and that you know this city. And I think you will see, and you will have the same feeling he had, that he's the right man at the right time for this department. There's extraordinary work being done with our reforms, great work being done every day on the streets. We want to lift that up, and we want to address the deficiencies that we all know are there so that San Francisco can be the beacon of hope in this country, which we certainly need now more than ever, that we can rebuild trust between police and the community and keep us safe. So congratulations, Mr. Mayor, congratulations, Chief, and thank you to everyone who participated in this process.
We worked together as an entire family of dedicated city officials, and I want to say thank you again to all the members of the Board of Supervisors for their dedication as well, because meetings occur there as well as in the community, and they hear it from everybody. So President London Breed, please come forward.
Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, I'd like to welcome our new police chief. You know, this is a long time coming, and I'm actually really excited. Reaching out to folks that I know in Southern California, they're really upset to lose you. And so I think that says a lot about this process. It says a lot about what the commission did to make this decision and what the mayor did to make this decision. Of course, as president of the board and as someone who grew up in the city, I definitely had a lot to say about what I wanted to see in a police chief, because we have a lot of challenges in San Francisco. It's not necessarily just about rebuilding trust, it's about establishing trust in the first place. We have an amazing team of officers, many of the command staff here I've worked with in the past in my community. They're dedicated to the city, they're dedicated to reforms, and now it's time to lead San Francisco in the right direction. And I think that we picked a good leader to help us move these reforms forward. So I'm looking forward to a new day in San Francisco. I'm looking forward to changes, noticeable changes in the department in San Francisco. I'm looking forward to making sure that we do all we can to make sure that people who are not deserving of wearing this uniform are weeded out of the department. Because at the end of the day, we have work to do. We have work to do, and bringing groups together, bringing the police department together with our community is really important, and I'm very excited. I'm very excited. He's going to be the leader of the department. We're going to support him, and I'm asking members of the public and the community to do all they can to continue to work with us and be optimistic about the future for this department. It's time for a new day, and I'm really excited about it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your service. Thank you, Chief Chaplain, for all that you've done, and the command staff. Thank you and welcome to San Francisco, to the Scott family. And thank you to the commission for all of the hours of work of listening to the community and coming up with what I believe is a very good decision for our city. Thank you all.
So this concludes our announcement, but we're open to a few questions, Deidre?
Yes, you
A
are.
few?
Yeah, we're going to take questions. I'm going to call on people, so if you want to raise your hand. First question will be Vic Lee from ABC.
Chief, first of all, welcome to San Francisco. You finally got here.
Thank you.
In my career here, I've seen maybe 3 outsiders achieve the role of chief. One of them is here in the room, Mr. Gascon, our district attorney, and one of your brothers from LAPD. San Francisco PD is noted for its, you might say, being rather xenophobic. It's a clubby, tight-knit police force. I think all 3 of the outsiders had difficulty. It was extremely hard for them to gain the support of the rank and file, the police union. What do you plan to do to overcome that obstacle?
Thank you. Well, a couple of things on that. First of all, in my 27 years, I've actually experienced that twice with an outside chief coming into LAPD. So I know what that feels like from the street officer level. One thing that you got to understand about police officers, when you're out there trying to do your job and protect and serve your community, you really don't, I mean, you care who the chief is, but it's really about, are you getting the support that you need to do your job? And first and foremost, that's my job, to make sure our officers get the support and everything they need to do their jobs. Coming in from the outside, I know that is, to some people, a shock to the system, but here's the thing that I saw in my own experience. When the chiefs come in from the outside, they have a different view of things, they have a fresh look, and those that really do that well are able to really come in with new ideas, fresh ideas, and work with the talent that's inside the department. This is a very talented organization from everything that I know. So my charge is to work with the talent that's in the organization right now. I'm going to come in with fresh eyes. I'm going to see things, differently because I haven't been in the organization. I wasn't raised in the organization, but it's doable. I lived through that. I lived through that with LAPD, and our last chief that came from the outside, Chief Bill Bratton, was a great role model for me to actually see how that's done, because I rose to the ranks while he was there, and he appointed me the captain. So I kind of saw what worked for me with a new chief coming in. And what worked for me was a chief that made me believe that he was supportive of me getting the job done by giving me what I needed to get the job done. So people will learn me. They'll learn who I am as we get to know, and as time progresses, people will know who I am. And I hope, I'm not going to change. I've been the same person. I'm not going to change. But I think the person that I am, I can resonate with the officers that are doing the job because that's where I come from. That's in my DNA. Most of my years with LAPD have been in operations, so I get it. And so my job is to make sure that they understand that I get it, but also to support them because we got a lot of work to do, and the mayor has set some high standards that I fully plan to be as successful as I can to make sure we get there. So, but I need the officers to know that I understand what they are feeling and going through.
Vivian?
So from what you know about San Francisco Police Department, from issues of racist text messages, from issues of disproportionate arrest numbers of minorities, what do you see as being the biggest challenge that the police department has overcome, and how do you propose to influence?
Well, I'll start with this is a more global issue than San Francisco. I mean, law enforcement across this country, we have challenges in the profession. So let's start there. This organization, like many others, has recognized what those challenges are. And the thing that attracted me to this job, this opportunity, is that the organization did recognize that there's challenges and there's things that we got to work on. And that was throughout the leadership of the organization, and a lot of that work has been started. So change is always a challenge, particularly in this profession. And I think one of the biggest challenges will be just that, change. Some things will change, some things have to change, but what I see is that there's an organization here that recognizes that and is willing to be open to that. So I think those challenges are overcome. They can be overcome. I mean, like I said, everything that I've seen, we have some good people in this organization. So change is difficult for all of us, whether you're in law enforcement or not. It's a challenge, but I think we can do it.
Mark?
Yeah, if I could zero in on that. Specifically, what changed?
One of the issues, and the use of force policies that the police commission and the POA and the community have been weighing in on, that's a huge thing in our profession, in this law enforcement profession. Whether or not those changes call for progress, just the fact that they change, it can be uncomfortable. And my 27 years, I've seen a lot of changes in the use of force policy, and that's a hot issue. But what I see is progress. I see both sides working to get a policy down on paper that's reasonable, that works for everybody, and that process has been a very difficult one. But that's one example of change. Officers, when you take something away from an officer that they're used to, it's a shock to our system. I say that with my 27 years, mostly in operations. It's a difficult thing, but we adapt. Once the policy is written, we adapt, and it becomes a foregone conclusion, and it becomes a way of our culture. So that's one, and there's many others, but that's a big one. So when I talk about change and the challenges, the good thing that attracts me to this position is Chief Chaplain, former Chief Scher. They recognize that, they're already working toward that, and the police officers that I've read about in the newspaper and the people that I've talked to, they recognize it as well, and they're willing to move forward. So yeah, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a give and take process, but it's moving in the right direction.
Tara?
This question is actually for the mayor. We know that you've had a lot of very qualified candidates, and you were able to whittle that down to 3. What was really the deciding factor in choosing who will be Chief Scott?
Well, let me preface that by saying that I have, and I hope I've demonstrated over my 5 years as mayor, a deep appreciation for the men and women of our San Francisco Police Department. And what I had to discipline myself, because my natural inclination is to look from within. And what distinguished and made a difference was that I had to discipline myself to the DOJ report and the independent assessment that was made about how we could be better as both a department and as a city. And in that, I had to search for the qualities and the skill sets that will implement effectively and as immediately as possible those changes that many, many people throughout the city, internal and external to the police department and the commission, had more than requested of our city. And so I look at this as being the skill sets and the ability and the leadership and the proven qualities to lead this department in that change that Bill talks about, because we are changing as a city. We are changing on the standards of what we expect the officers to do. And I believe that in looking at that and really focused on those recommendations and those disciplines, those assessments, it led me to look at all the candidates and just determine it was not an outside versus inside. Ultimately, it was who's got the skill sets and who's got the proven ability to bring this department forward.
Yeah, we're going to have one last question. Jenna?
Hi, Jenna Lane from KCBS Radio. Given the attack in Berlin and our own city's ongoing debate about this, where do you stand on shooting at moving vehicles?
No crowd. Well, let me start my comments by saying it's a tragedy. First and foremost, people lost their lives. So our hearts go out to the folks that have been impacted by this in Berlin. People have lost their lives. So let's start there. Secondly, all I know right now is a couple of paragraphs in the newspaper, so it's really not fair to the process to make assessments on what happened in Berlin and how it relates to the pending San Francisco PD policy. But what I will say is this. Again, I'll draw on my own experiences in LAPD. In 2005, we went through the same process. We're still surviving. We're a strong organization. There was some contention on either sides of that issue, and we moved forward with a policy that's very, very restrictive as far as shooting and moving vehicles. So I've lived that. I was in operations at the lower levels of operations when that happened. So I understand, and this goes back to what I said a minute ago about change is a shock to our system. But at the end of the day, everybody wants a policy that is reflective of what the community is calling for in terms of use of force. And in terms of that policy, as the process goes, I am fully in support of the restrictions. However, I am also very happy to see that progress is being made, and I know it's not there yet, but both sides have weighed in on the issues, and we have progressively moved toward what we believe is going to be a fair process and a fair policy. President Loftus has led that charge, and I'm fully supportive of what's happening in terms of the process, and I think we'll get there.
Last question, Carolyn Taylor.
I'm wondering, Chief, first of all, congratulations and welcome. One of the Blue Ribbon panel reports said that the Police Officer Association essentially is running the department. They were pushing for interim chief chaplain. How do you break through? Do you have a strategy in mind for breaking through to the union?
As the chief of police of San Francisco, it's real simple for me. I get the kind of union that I deserve. That's really simple. And what I mean by that is I am who I am. If I'm fair, if I'm firm, if I stand on the policies of this organization and the citizens, first and foremost, because we're all here to serve the citizens. But that has to be done in a fair way, in an open way, and in a way that people feel like they are treated with respect and fairness, restorative justice, if you will. And as chief, I get what I deserve. If I breach those basic tenets of decency, I'm going to get the union that I deserve. So, like I said, I am who I am. During my management career in LAPD, I've never had an issue with the union in terms of we've had some issues and disagreements and whatnot. But it's about fairness, it's about honesty, it's about openness. And sometimes it's whose hand is at the top of the bat that gets to take the first swing, and we have to live with that. But the process of how we do that is really important, and I think to your question, my plans are to be the type of chief that deserves a POA that is willing to work with me by the way I work with them.
All right, no, that's the last of the questions. Thank you. Ellen will be at the door with the press release if anybody wants the press release. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
My son wants the puppies car. How you doing, Alan? It's a great name.
Oh my God! That's painful.
Who else needs on blood?
I didn't see Dawn. It's like number 6. Yeah, she's like, let's do it. Exactly. Andy, maybe you should have gone on the table. Vic?
Where's Vic?
That's not fair.
Okay, okay, I'll take it, I'll take it.
Back up. I'm with Vic. You want to talk to him? No, I'm just telling him. He called me, so he didn't have to call me. Okay, all right. Okay. Which one?
None of us knew her. Okay, of course. Yeah, wait for me, I'll come out. Great to see you. Happy holidays.
Hey, same to you. Nice to see you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. You too. I've seen you in such a long time. How you doing?
Just doing my
How you
job.
doing your job? Yeah.
No worries. As long as you speak up, as long as everyone lets me know, I could always, you missed the riot.
Riot? Well, how was that?
No, it's good. As long as people speak up.
How do we get out? That way.
Yes,
That's the opening.
well, okay, you should continue with this.